split toning. And I know you thought about split toning. You've dabbled with it. You've kind of like you've gone on a couple dates here and there, but you ain't really gotten to know split toning. You know what I mean? In this video, I'm going to show you 5 advanced Lightroom raw processing techniques that you might not yet know. And along the way, we're actually going to process this raw file, taking it to this final image. My name is Pi, and I'm one of the founders of Lynn and Jersa Photography and SLRlounge.com. We're teaming up with Adorama to bring you a new series of photography tutorials called Master Your Craft right here on Adorama TV. So let's dive in. What's up, my friends? Welcome to another tutorial here on Adorama TV. Now, we have just released an entire workshop covering Lightroom from A to Z on SLRloungeworkshops.com. But instead of talking about that, I just wanted to show you guys 5 advanced techniques. Well, there's going to be a lot of things you're going to learn along the way in this tutorial, but we're going to focus on 5 specific topics. This is a great time to pause the video, go to the description, and download the raw file so you can actually work right along with us. So here's our raw file. I'm going to go ahead and press Control-Shift-R or Command-Shift-R to reset everything out. At any point in time when we use different shortcuts, we're going to list those out so you guys can follow along those as well. So the first tip and technique is to understand that the tone curve as well as the parametric sliders, they actually operate independently. I'm going to show you exactly why this is so powerful. In fact, we're going to close down the basic panel and not even touch it for just a moment. We're going to come down to our tone curve. Now, when you open up the tone curve, you're going to see something like this or something like this. So when this button is clicked, we're editing the point curve, right? So we can actually click and just drop in points along the shadows to the highlights and pull up and down as our heart sees fit, right? Let me reset this out. What this means is if I click and add a point here in the shadow, if I pull it down, it's going to lower the exposure, or if I pull it up, it's going to raise the exposure of those tones. And what you see represented behind this is just the histogram, right? It's the same histogram up here placed into the tone curve. So for example, if I want to take this image and we have a high dynamic range shot here, so I'm going to raise my shadows quite a bit, but let's say I want to drop the highlights, I can do that from here. The problem is, as soon as I start dropping or making big sweeping changes to this tone curve, you get to a place where you start to create posterization, which is these unnatural graduations in tones within your image, right? So we can only make so much of an adjustment in that tone curve before we kind of have to go back to the basic panel and make adjustments up here. So that's already powerful enough to be able to do that, to be able to make an adjustment in the tone curve and go back up here and be able to make more adjustments to the highlights and whatnot. But we actually have another layer of control that most of us never think about. If I open up the parametric sliders, I can see these sliders by region. And these sliders actually operate independently from that curve itself. So whatever I'm doing right now is going to fine tune this curve, but it's not going to change the points. So if I want to continue to pull down highlights, I can do that. If I want to continue to pull down my lights, I can do that. If I want to raise the darks, I can do that. If I want to drop the shadows a little bit, I can do that. I can press J to turn on my highlight and clipping alert, and I can continue to make little fine-tuning adjustments as it tells me which areas of my image might be blown out and which areas are intact. I'm going to bring my darks up a little bit, bring the shadows up a little bit. Now, that's kind of crazy, right? Because I can go back to my point curve now and I can actually adjust these independently as well. So I can get to a very natural curve response by using these 2 functions simultaneously. So sliders, curve. Okay, that's kind of crazy. Let me turn this off, my highlight and clipping alert, by pressing J, because what I want to show you is we haven't even touched the basic panel now. So now if I flip this on and off, look at this. This is the image before that one single adjustment, that tone curve. Now I can go up and I can make more adjustments. I can pull the highlights down a little bit. I can bring a little bit of whites back into the image. I can maybe pull the shadows down. I can make other fine-tuning adjustments right here, add in a little bit of contrast, do whatever I want with my base tones. The reason this is so powerful is because now, with this understanding, as you create your own presets, you can build all these functions into the tone curve and the parametric sliders, and you can leave basic panel adjustments for fine-tuning on an image. So it makes your presets that much more powerful. Okay, so that's technique number one, and hopefully your eyes are already popping right now. Let's go on to technique number two, and that is that we have 7. I don't know why I always use my fingers. 7. We have 7 ways of adjusting color. Some of these we know a lot about, some of them a little bit. Some of them we don't even know we can use to adjust color. So one of the things that we all kind of know is we can adjust the temperature slider, right? Temperature and tint is number 1. So I'm going to bring my temperature up to 7800 Kelvin. I'm also going to push my magentas up a little bit. We'll go up to about right here. Okay, so that's one way we can use to adjust color. Number 2, that's fairly obvious, is vibrance and saturation. Okay, so vibrance is going to make smaller adjustments to color without really affecting skin tone as much. Saturation makes adjustments to color uniformly across everything. Okay, so it's going to affect every color equally. So what I sometimes like to do is I'll drop the saturation by a little bit and I'll actually raise vibrance by quite a bit, right? So vibrance has a tendency to kind of leave skin tones alone, which lets me kind of bump it up just a little bit more. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, as far as maybe known but not used that much, is the HSL. So from HSL, we can adjust hue, saturation, and luminance of each of these colors independently. It's actually incredibly powerful, and we spend a lot of time in the course working through here and really understanding it. But the basic gist here is I can grab my adjustment slider. Instead of trying to actually adjust these individually from the slider, just grab the adjustment brush right here, or this little eyedropper, and target adjustment. That's what the target adjustment. And grab it and just drop it over any color in the image. And from here, we can shift that color. So right now I'm shifting this color more towards oranges, right? So I can go more towards the greens or more towards the oranges. And here I want to shift this more towards oranges. So I'm actually going to pull the oranges a little more towards the reds. And on the blue side, so I want to bring my blues. Let's see what we're getting here. There we go. There's our blues. I actually want to bring my blues just a little more into the teal range. Okay, so I'm shifting the hue right now. Next, I'm going to go to saturation. I actually don't want my blues to be that saturated, so I'm going to kind of tone down the blues a little bit to kind of let the other colors shine a little bit more, have a more rich sort of warmth to the image. In fact, what we'll do is actually bring up the saturation of our warm tones. So I'm going to pull up the yellows, pull up the oranges just a bit more. And maybe I'll bring down the reds a little bit because I don't necessarily want the reds of his outfit kind of showing through. So I'm just going to pull down the reds a bit. Right about to here. So now we have those independent controls. We can also control the brightness of those, but I'm pretty happy with where the brightness is right now on those. So that's luminance. Okay, so those are the ones that are more known. Now, less known, well, first, you thought I was going to go to split panel, didn't you? I'm not going to split toning, not the split panel. What is the split panel? I don't even know my words right now. I'm going to go back up to the tone curve. I'm going to click the point curve option, and what you'll notice is currently it defaults to setting the channel to RGB. If I actually drop into any one of these color channels, red, greens, or blues, each of these channels again operate independently from the RGB channel, which means I can now effectively change color throughout the image from just adjusting the curves within these independent channels. So if I want just a little more reds throughout the image, I can click and grab a point anywhere in the center and just drag it up a little bit. And what you'll notice is the more I go, the more it's going to go crazy, right? I don't want to go crazy on each side. What I want to do is just add subtle amounts of red throughout the image. And that's it. I have now effectively added red. And another way to add reds and greens simultaneously is just to pull down the blues. If you pull down the blues, it's going to add reds and greens. The cool thing is I can actually pull up the blues in certain areas, like let's say in the shadows, and I can bring this point all the way to the highlights, and I can say, I'm going to bring down the blues and the highlights, kind of revealing a little bit more of the reds and greens in the highlights, right? Again, very subtle adjustments. If at any point you don't like the adjustment, you can right click and say flatten curve. You can click on an individual point and say delete control point or flatten the entire curve, right? I'm going to click right here. One more tip. You're learning a lot more than 5 things. You can tell me. You can be honest. It's cool. So I'm going to click and drag, hold down shift to constrain the movement to just the vertical movement, right? So that way I'm not kind of going up and down. And I'm just going to get a hint. I drank too much coffee this morning, so like my brush movements are very erratic right now. my mouse movements. And I'm going to go ahead and drop into the highlights. I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. In fact, what I might do is bring it down lower. There. And I'm going to let those kind of rich hues of the kind of oranges and everything shine through in the highlight areas of my image. Right about here. I still want a little bit of the blues, but I want a lot of those hues to come through. So, okay, that makes another way that we can adjust color. That's number 4, right? Well, what about number 5? Split toning. And I know you thought about split toning. You've dabbled with it. You've kind of like you've gone on a couple dates here and there, but you ain't really gotten to know split toning. You know what I mean? Okay. So what we're gonna do is click on the highlights, because here's the beauty of it. Yes, you can go ahead and just click a color, and the higher you go on this, the more saturated. The lower you go, the less saturated. And then you have left to right is the actual color that you're affecting itself. You can do it that way, or you can click inside of the highlight area, inside this panel, and just drag it right into the image. And once you're over the image, you are now selecting tones that already exist in your image. And this is my favorite way to control split toning, because now I can actually control it with the tones that are already existing. I'm gonna do the same thing in the shadows. I'm gonna drop it down right into this center of the rocks where I have the shadows. And if it gets me to a color that's a little bit too much, I can pull it down. If it gets me to a color that's not quite right, I can bring it and cool it down a little bit. So I'm gonna bring it like kind of slightly into the blues. So we kind of have this orange hue being added up here, and we have this kind of purplish. I might even drop this down just a little bit more. I want kind of more of a teal right about here. Right there. Kind of a teal look in the shadows. I'm going to now push the balance to the right side, which is going to emphasize more of the highlights than the shadows. And if you want to tweak saturation of these, you can drop these or pull these up and down accordingly, okay? So this is looking pretty good right here. I might go down just a, actually, I like it at 20. Okay, so that's another way of controlling our tone. Okay, great. So now let's go into number 6. Number 6 is calibration. Now this guy, this is one of those things that you're just terrified of. You're like, I'm not going to touch that. I don't know what that is. Don't worry. All this does is it's going to affect overall tones as the image comes in, right? So it's one of those things that usually you want to kind of dial in before you make all these other adjustments, but you can also use it creatively after the fact to control color. So for example, what I might do is actually shift the overall shadow tone towards the magenta side a little bit more. I'm going to actually raise my reds to kind of get me again to this more rich kind of orange look. So you see how it kind of drops in those reds. It just drops it in nicely. And we get to this more rich tone. I'm going to even bring up, actually, let's make it a little bit more subtle. So I'm going to bring the saturation down a little bit. Now as I drop into the green hues, as I go to the left side, I get more of the oranges. As I go to the right side, I get more of these teals, right? So I'm going to go to the right side because I kind of want to use this to sort of blend between the two. Okay, I like the look of the sky down here, but the rocks are a little bit, they're not doing me right. Okay, I'm also going to tone this back a little bit, and I'm going to drop into the blue primaries. To the right, I start getting a little bit too much yellow in the sky. To the left is where everything starts to fall into that tone that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go to the left, and I'm going to also drop the blue primary saturation a little bit. Now look at this. Again, this kind of overall subtle adjustment to colors being made through that panel, right? And what we're ending up getting is fantastic. But we have 7 freaking ways. Wait, I only did 6. He only did 6. What's the 7th? Well, we can actually control color locally. Are your minds blown yet right now? I hope so. Because watch this. I'm going to flip over to one of the Visual Flow brush presets for exposure. We use these frequently just to kind of burn certain areas, right? All it is just a negative 0.5 exposure. Save that out. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. What I'm going to do is hold from the top, hold shift to constrain this graduated filter as it drops down. And what you'll see is it's darkening the tone like a graduated filter as it comes across the top of the image, right? Oh, this image is looking mighty nice. And I'm going to go ahead and just make some adjustments to it. I'm going to pull it down just a little bit more in its overall intensity, okay? So it's -1. Now I can actually add colors directly to these adjustments as well. I can do the exact same thing and pick an existing color tone anywhere on here by just clicking, dragging right over. All right, so there we go. I clicked and dragged, and I'm now again manipulating color in the image. I can do the same thing from the bottom of the image. Okay, but from the bottom, you know what? All I want to do is just kind of deepen and darken it. I really don't want to do too much of the burn. And you will notice any of these brush or graduate filter settings has the option to drop in a color effect, giving you now 7 ways of controlling color on your images. Boom. Now let's go on to technique number 3. One of my favorite things to do, I use radial filters oftentimes to create subtle vignettes on my images. And what I do is I create a radial filter and I drop it over the image at that -0.5, right? Well, instead of doing this every single time and going up here to the menu, I'm just going to do it once. And I'm going to drop this radial filter right in the center of my image. I'm going to pull it out. Usually I end up making 2 of these, one more narrow and one larger, right? Let's make the larger one now. And once it's placed, I'm going to go ahead and just get it right directly smack dab in the center, or at least the best of my ability. And from here, I'm actually going to go to the left panel. And I'm going to now save this as a radial filter preset. So create preset, go right down here, click check none, select process version, so it saves the version of Lightroom that you're using, and then click radial filter or graduate filters or both. Usually just do the one that you're choosing. So radial filter, give it a name and save it out. Now, if you are a Visual Flow preset system user, this already comes inside of the retouching kit. And you'll notice that once this is done, all you have to do to add a radial filter is click. So dodge and burn filters, radial burn. This is the narrow one. This is the wider one. And if you press Shift M, that's going to toggle your filters on and off, right? So all I got to do is choose one, press Shift M, and drag it to where I want. And this makes it a little bit simpler than having to go over here and make adjustments and kind of choose the preset and drop it in every single time. It just makes our workflow that much better. So this image is looking mighty nice. Let's go on to technique number 4, which is dodging and burning inside of Lightroom, because most of us don't even realize just how powerful this can be. Local dodging and burning. Let me show you. One of my favorite things to do is to go over the image and to actually lower the exposure further, drop the contrast a little bit so we get kind of like this nice sort of fade and sort of kind of subtle contrast in the shadows. And I'm actually going to warm up the image a little bit more just while I'm here. You know, give it a little more toning and maybe take it a little bit more towards the green side. Okay. So with that slight darker bit, I'm like, I would really love for him to be a bit brighter, right? What I'm going to do is go up to my adjustment brush. You can press K to get there. And what I'm going to show you right now is something, it's gold. All right. Just give me a thumbs up just for this one thing. These are statistically sampled brushes. So all of these are part of the Visual Flow retouching kit, and they're all statistically sampled brushes, which means one of the things that's an issue inside of creating brushes in Lightroom is that when you drag and drop something in and you increase or reduce the strength of something. So if I hold down Alt or Option, you can drag to the left or to the right to increase or decrease the strength of it. When you do that, it makes incremental adjustments. And if your incremental adjustments are not sampled and tested, the contrast and color are going to be off. So pause the video and dial this in, because this adjustment here is a statistically sampled adjustment that makes sure that when you pull up and down the strength of the effect, the color and saturation stays the same. The reason this is powerful, because with the exposure up to 0.5, contrast dropped, highlights up, shadows up, whites down a little bit, and with the clarity and saturation adjustments plus noise, I can now drop right into my subject's face and actually lighten or dodge exactly where I want on the image. And I'm using my mouse. I don't have to get into Photoshop. I don't have to do anything crazy. I can use my mouse and paint this messy little mask over him that actually does a really nice job, because it's targeting certain areas to actually lift and leave alone. Now, once you've done this, you can actually press the O key to show your mask, okay? So from here, you can kind of fine tune the mask a little bit, but I wouldn't worry so much about the edges yet, because I'm going to show you another technique to kind of get your edges right, okay? So even if you're painting off into the shadows a little bit, not to worry, all right? So from here, I can actually hold down Alt or Option and drag to the right to increase the strength, or drag to the left to decrease the strength. So I'm actually going to drag to the right until the highlights of the skin get to a place that I like. Now you look at it and you're like, yeah, but it doesn't quite look natural. right, Pi? And this is where I'm going to take you to technique number 5. What most of us don't understand, even if we've learned the range mask function inside of Lightroom, we don't understand how powerful it is. The range mask function is this little option that's below any of the graduated filter or brushes that you paint in. Now, by choosing this, you can add a mask, which is going to basically give you the blend if function inside of Photoshop. And what you're telling Lightroom is, I only want you to apply this effect to the areas of the image that are either a certain color or a certain brightness. So what I'm going to tell Lightroom is, do not apply this effect anytime the range drops into the shadows. And watch this. As soon as I click up, you see it drop right off of everything that's a shadow, which includes the rocks, includes his pants, his clothes. And I'm going to keep lifting right to about here. I don't want to lift any of those other shadows in there. Perfect. And I don't want it to apply to anything that's a highlight that might be brighter than his skin tone. So I'm going to pull it down just a little bit from the top. And about 92, 93, that's going to give you usually enough to pull it off of any water, any background areas that are brighter than the skin, essentially. So now we've refined this brush without ever really worrying about kind of painting the mask or adjusting the mask or anything like that. I'm also going to increase the smoothness. So the smoothness is the transition of the effect to the areas that are affected to the areas that are not. And I'm going to raise it to like 65-ish. And from here, this is where you can click Alt or Option and drag again to the right if you want to see what it looks like more powerful, or if you want to see what it looks like a little bit more subtle. And I'm going to leave it like maybe a little bit more on the subtle side. But we had that nice little lift effect right there. And that's it. From all of this, you know what? I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to add another radial filter right over him again. Or you could just click this one and actually just make it more powerful. So I'm just going to pull the exposure down a little bit more into him. And I might even darken the sky coming down just a little bit more from the top. Okay. I'm going to press J to make sure that my shadows are doing okay, right? So some of these deep, dark areas of shadow, they look a little bit wonky. So little final tip here. Check it out. I'm going to go to my point curve. I can lift my shadows right here, right? But if I lift it too much, it kind of gives me a little bit like not too good of contrast in the image. What I'm going to do instead is go back to my point curve, go back to the RGB channel, and I'm going to clip any shadow that drops below a certain amount. So it goes to a dark gray, and all we're going to do is hold down Shift and click that option and just go up a point. And I'm going to click right at the top. These are like all bonus tips for y'all. And we're going to pull this down to the top to make sure that any whites that go past this point go to a bright kind of light color. These go to a dark gray. And now we end up with this subtle kind of nice fade on the image, and I can add contrast without killing shadows and getting these deep dark blacks that kind of look out of place. So what's cool about this is we went from this raw file to this final image, and we probably edited this image in ways that you really haven't thought about inside of Lightroom. If you guys enjoyed this, if you learned something along the way, I'm telling you, you have to check out the entire workshop. Mastering Lightroom on srloungeworkshops.com. It's a complete tutorial from A to Z. It walks you through the beginnings of the application all the way through to complete raw processing mastery, and includes all of the 30+ exercise files. I think it's close to 7 hours of education from A to Z. You'll walk away from it being like, oh my gosh, I barely ever need Photoshop now, just for very specific things. And it's going to make your life better. With that, I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, well, give Adorama TV a huge thanks for bringing us out here. Give them a like, subscribe to the channel, comment below on what you guys would like to see next, and you guys can follow me at SR Lounge, or specifically at Pi Jirsa on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.